Hey everyone, this is Summer Kennard, and I wanted to answer a blog comment question that I thought would be helpful to everyone to hear the answer instead of just putting it in a comment. So I'm going to be posting this on my blog as well as YouTube. My blog is summerkennard.com, so it'll be right there. I got this comment today from someone named Chris, and Chris says, I have a question. My godson is at the moment nonverbal autistic, but is an amazing communicator in his own right. I would love for him to take communion, which he is resistant to at the moment. Oral sensitivity? He loves crunchy textures and has no problems with liquids. He will approach the chalice with me, but is not ready to partake. Our priest is very patient and understanding and will work with him in any way needed. Suggestions? Many thanks, and may God continue to guide and bless you and your family. Thank you, Chris. So when I get a comment like this, it reminds me, I've actually had this question asked me several times, and I think it's time to just show you some stuff that worked for us and that might work for you. So I have a little bin here of oral motor stuff. One of the things that happens, one of the ways we understand Holy Communion and the Divine Liturgy and just the presence of God with us there is that it doesn't stay there. It actually transforms our whole community, our entire life, right? And we even in the prayers we say this, our whole lives to Christ our God, and we pray for all the people, and we pray for the whole world, and we pray for everything, right? Well, so whenever you're talking about helping children with disabilities come to the church, you need to understand that a lot of this, the preparation happens before you get there. And so some of the things I say may seem a little but they're preparations. So think of them like that. And something that may seem tedious otherwise will become holy whenever you realize the context, that it's all moving toward God. And there's no place where God is not. That's the other thing. So don't forget that, and don't worry. So the first thing that I always say is ask your priest, right? But this person has specifically told me that their priest wants to do something to help, but is maybe wondering what are some suggestions that would help. I will tell you some things that sometimes help at the chalice. Sometimes children who are not able to coordinate their muscles and their hand-eye coordination and what's called motor planning, or in this case, oral motor planning, okay? If they cannot do that, sometimes they will be okay with someone touching something to their lips. So sometimes priests accommodate with just doing like you do with someone in the hospital or a very, very tiny baby. That's something. I don't know if that's going to work for you or if your priest thinks that's appropriate. It's up to the priest what's appropriate, okay? I do know of one child whose motor planning challenges were such that he and his priest worked it out that he doesn't grab the spoon, but he can't understand where the spoon is unless he's touching someone. So he actually, this is very unusual, touches the priest's hand while the priest is moving the spoon, and then the child is able to understand where it is in space. So I'm not saying that's going to work for you or that that's what a priest is going to say is okay. I'm just telling you some things I've heard of. But I'll tell you now what worked for us. What worked for us was, first of all, notice what the child is doing. Okay, I'm glad the child's good with liquids, but not everyone, whenever you think to yourself, oh, we're not mimicking communion here. Okay, so this is something we do. It's called water soup. But not everyone is able to just say, oh, okay, I'm going to take a drink of something from a spoon. Okay, there's a lot of steps in that you may not realize. Knowing where the spoon is in space, right, it's a big deal. Where is the spoon? How do I know where that is? Especially if you're not the one holding it, right? That's a big challenge. Now, there's also a lot that goes on in the mouth whenever you go to, you have to make your lips, right? In order to receive it. And then you have to know how to move the liquid from the front so it doesn't just go down. And you need to be able to coordinate a lot of muscles, your tongue, your lips, your throat, in order to get the water from here in here, right? And you don't really think about it if you are neurotypical, how to you it's easy, but there's a lot going on. And if you don't have one of those skills, it's impossible, right? So what we do in my family is when our kids go through, we had several oral motor challenge kids. And you see how I stumble over my words sometimes. I had this when I was a kid. I still sometimes whenever I'm thinking of a lot of things, I get a log jam here too. So it's there's some things going on. You might talk to the child if the child's in therapy. Ask their occupational therapist or their speech therapist about oral motor planning, and if they have apraxia, that's one of the things you could do. That's one of the things you could find out about. So anyway, we do this thing called water soup where we teach the kids how to practice with water. And I know I'm slurping, but being loud and slurping is part of it because you're trying to demonstrate what to do with your lips, right? And it may seem funny, but this is, the reason I'm using this is because it doesn't look like communion. You're not mocking it, but this is something you can play or practice with, and they'll make a mess with it, so expect that to happen. You could practice this in the home to start building the skills of being able to predict where the water is going or where the liquid's going. Where is the spoon and what do I do with my mouth? Now, backing up, this may be too much of an advancement for a lot of kids. So let's say that you are able to put things in your mouth, but you can't aim the spoon. You might try one of these spoons. Let's see, who's it by. This is a Playtex brand spoon. It's an adaptive spoon it says for toddlers, but it doesn't matter. Whenever it comes to special needs, age is not as relevant. The reason is if you have a lot of times with people with autism, you have uneven development, and it could be wildly uneven. You could be like college level on one thing and like a 1-year-old on another thing. And you don't think that that's true, but it super is. And that's really important to know. Because when you reach a milestone, you're going to react as though you were the age that a milestone usually happens. So you may be like, why am I this grown adult or this teenager and all of a sudden I'm acting like a 2-year-old brat or whatever. Not that 2-year-olds are brats, but they can be. You know what I mean? When that phase goes and they're like, why did I do this? Is it psychosis? Why did it last one day? It lasted because you just had a growth spurt. So I try to warn people about that. Anytime I'm teaching you something and you start to grow, if someone hits a growth spurt, they may act wild. And that's just a matter of re-regulating the senses. You have to take your new thing and get your overly complicated brain to understand where it fits. So kids will get overwhelmed no matter what age they are, or even if you're an older person like a teenager or even an adult. If you hit a milestone, you're going to have a weird reaction. Expect that, plan for it. The way that I will tell you, I've told you in my Autism Brain Owner's Manual post, if you look on my blog, I've told you a little bit about what to do. You're going to have to do some sensory regulation on purpose, basically. But let's say that you're back at this stage with the kid and they can do water soup and you just need to do this spoon instead. That's fine. So that may help with some kids. Now, backing it up. Okay, my kids couldn't do that at first, some of them. And so what we did was we started with things like bubbles. Bubbles are great because you have to make that face. You see? And whenever you learn to use your lips, right? Bubbles are wonderful. So I recommend bubbles. Just do these several times a week. They're not expensive. You can find bubbles pretty much anywhere at a store. Let's see. The other thing... Now, I have only two types of straws here, but this is one of those hard straws that comes with sippy cups, and this is like a bendy straw, which I don't recommend banning because a lot of people with disabilities need them. That's what they're for. They're not for turtles to sniff stuff or whatever. These are not actually the problem for turtles. That's balloons, but God bless everybody, right? So this stuff right here, that was a rant. You can blow through them, right? Now, not everyone can suck things through a straw, but that doesn't matter because what we're trying to do for the purpose of communion is get the shape, right? And you could do that with these. I didn't have any smoothie straws, which are bigger, and those might be more helpful. Also, kids' sippy cups sometimes come with a thicker silicone one, and if you have a kid with motor challenges, you might want to use that instead of one of these hard straws. But to demonstrate, what I wanted to show you is what I recommend doing is games a few times a week and you could use different size puff balls. Like this is a little one. That is just a piece of fuzz that's stuck to it. A big one, and then there's like these medium ones of different sizes. And what you do is do not try to make it, I'm going to go in a straight line. That's a bad idea. And don't try to make it into something that you regulate too much. Just try to make you move it. So your goal for this game is to just move things with air. So you're going to go, right? You're going to try to do that. Now, I did that easily, but it could be really hard for some kids to do this. So you put them on a table or the floor, however you want to do it, whatever's easiest. One thing, if you do something on the floor, if the kid's able to, and if they don't like have a G-tube or something that's going to get in the way, if you blow on the floor and you're on your belly, it also gives people deep pressure at the same time, which can help them concentrate. So that might be a good idea. You could also do this seasonally. Just wanted to show you this. They have these little decorations at craft stores and stuff, like these little pretend leaves. Also with real leaves, okay? So it is fall right now when I'm recording this, and fall or spring if you have blossoms on the ground, or if you have seeds, you know, like maple seeds or something, use something from outdoors. But this is an example with a craft store pretend one, but right, blowing things around. This is a really fun game, and you could incorporate it into your nature walks or into your backyard or whatever. You know, if you do something like maybe you bring the nature inside to the kid, whatever. So you can do things with real leaves or pretend ones or puffballs. All sorts of things. Okay, and if you're like really can't do a whole lot, let's say you don't have any resources. Okay, that's fine. If you have a dust bunny or some dryer lint that you find, that works too. But like most people can find a leaf on the ground, and if you can't use a straw, just go. That's harder to aim, but start with what you have. Just with what you have. Now the other thing is, some kids have. There's a kind of split in people's sensory needs. Some people are sensory seekers and some people are avoiding it. But most kids, if you give them a really, really stout burst of sensory stuff, they will get a sudden awareness. And sometimes if they're overwhelmed by the idea of something touching them, something like this, like not in church, but maybe before you go to church, that morning, you make sure to get an electric toothbrush. This is like the cheapest kind, the non-branded, you know, whatever. They're like a couple of dollars, I think. So if you can get one of these, let the kids play with them in the morning, or, you know, they could brush their teeth with them. And if they're okay with it, you can also just be like, one of the things I did with one of my kids who had a really strong, he was eating books. So we had to get him, we realized he sought out sensory input. We gave him some of these and he just like wore them out all around the house to play with. And we also, if he was being really intense, I would put a little bit of rose water, because it's a strong scent, or a little bit of, I'm trying to think of what it was, because I didn't want to use toothpaste. I needed to use something that was really mild. I had one more thing I put on there, and I can't remember what it was. It was a strong flavor, but it was a non-annoying one. Like, I think rosewater was a big one, and there was another thing like mint, I think it was, but not mint oil, right? Because that's too strong. This like mint extract, or like, it wasn't mint extract. I think I had some kind of mint candy or something, but I cannot remember what it was right now because it's been a long time since my kids needed this. But I know I used rose water because I still have that and I still use it. And it was just a strong, hey, this is a very strong flavor, what's happening? And then they could be like, whoa, what is that? And then you can rinse it off. Also, my kids use that really mild strawberry toothpaste, the Tom's Kid toothpaste, so they don't really, it's not a strong flavor. But if you have regular toothpaste that they use, that's also incredibly intense. So that's one thing that could help. One more thing I wanted to tell you. So you're building awareness through play. That's what you're doing. You want to help them coordinate. Now, there's a whole set of therapies that some people have access to, and where you do these weird lip movements and you practice, right? Well, most people don't have access to that. It's really hard to find an OT who does that, and it's really hard. Usually there's a waiting list for more than a year, okay, if you can get in there. So what I'm going to tell you to do, I'm going to make sure to frame this right, because it sounds stereotypical. People used to make fun of people with challenges, whether it was intellectual or just coordination, by saying, oh, blah, 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 and it was rude, right? Okay, here's the thing. This really, really helps your oral motor capacity. So, but you can't just go around doing it, and you want to have it context driven. So what I try to do to the kid with the kids, not to them. That sounds wrong. But when the kids are in the bathtub, I model for them just in the bathtub that I'm pretending to talk to the fish. So what I say is, I'm going to talk to the fish. So I'll say something like, "Hello, Mr. Fish." And like, "Hello, Mr. Fish," but I'll go blah, 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 because this touching my lip and moving it, right, my two lips, by doing that, I'm actually really strengthening my coordination. Now, the kids may or may not follow me, but if I can get them to notice it and mirror it, then they're going to get more awareness anyway. So that's one of the things I probably should have said in the beginning. Modeling is good too if the kid doesn't want to participate. If you want to show them how to eat with a spoon, yeah, they may not be ready for it. That's okay. And not every kid has the ability to coordinate if they don't have use of all their muscles, you know, but do what you can. Try to find something. One thing you could also do popping, like, which can be an annoying sound, but if they can do it, it is helpful. And you know, blowing bubbles, but sometimes kids will do spit bubbles where they go, "Mom, mama." I can't do that. I can't like spit bubble on command, but little kids can do spit bubbles. And that's another thing. Lip trills, which is something I think a lot of voice teachers who teach high school students for some reason do this, but right? Or they'll go, you don't actually have to do that for voice. God bless everyone. But that's something that people do. So if you can make that sort of motor sound, and you just, the key is to incorporate this into play, right? So you're going to, if you're using trucks or boats or something, you're going to go and try to get them to see that and do it, because that builds awareness again. So the other thing is, and this is important, I never think it's a good idea to try to force somebody to accept someone touching them that they don't want to touch. So you want the child to be familiar with their priest, if you can at all. Like some churches have lots of priests. We were at the cathedral here in Houston for about a year, and we found that a couple of the kids got really upset if we switched priest lines. So we eventually started going to, we went to one priest for a little while, then we went to the other priest, and we just always went to him. And even if it meant we were kind of like weirdly steering in line, because there's 5 priests up there giving communion, and we're like, oh, we're going to cut over to the one on the right. But doing that every week, it really helped the kids feel like, okay, it's okay. This is a priest. I know what he's doing, right? And that's good. You want kids to have boundaries. And kids with autism, a lot of times their boundaries are not honored, and you want to honor them. And you want to honor them especially around church. And you want to especially honor them with things to do with communion. So if you can find one priest and go consistently to that priest, you know, talk to your priest or however and work this out, that's a good idea. The other thing to do is to realize, you know, you don't want kids to just take whatever's put in their face. You don't want people to come up to them and say, "Here, take this." And you're like, okay, you wouldn't like that. And no one likes that. Being autistic doesn't make you suddenly be like, "I'm fine with people putting things right up in my face." No, that's usually the opposite. You're like, "Whoa, mister, back up," right? So you don't want to have a habit of overriding any boundaries. Because of that, you know, this water play of water soup, I'm showing you like me doing this for myself. You might say, "Here, do you want to try this?" And let, like, a mom or a dad, someone really trusted, right, to do something like this. But you also want the kid to do it themselves. So what you're trying to teach is not, anytime someone puts something by my face, I'm going to eat it. Because, I mean, hopefully no one's going to abuse that, but you don't want to, even if it's a food allergy, right? You don't want someone to be like, "Here, kid, here's a hot dog," or whatever, and the kid is allergic to that. You don't want them to just automatically be like, "Awesome food," you know, or like, "Here's a lollipop," and it's like got the dye in it that they're allergic to. No, right? So you don't want to teach a false boundary, a bad boundary. You want them to be able to do this themselves. So that's what we're going toward. And by doing that, they understand what they have to do to receive a spoon. Then you build a relationship of trust with the priest and familiarity. So going to church as often as you can. If you have times when the priest meets with just the kids, and the parents, you know, if there's some sort of event, if you can go and meet with the priest sometimes just with you and the kids, go do that just build a relationship of trust, because a relationship of trust is going to be the other thing besides the skills building and besides the self-regulation that you need. Okay, I hope this helps you. This is Summer Kennard again, summerkennard.com. Oh, let me show you this. My book is coming out in October 22nd, of Such is the Kingdom. You know what? This is backwards to you, isn't it? Well, there you go. Of Such is the Kingdom. Can you see it this way? It is a practical theology of disability. It's coming with Ancient Faith. Available wherever books are sold, October 22nd. I have a page up on my blog, on my website. It's called Of Such is the Kingdom is the page. Just click on it. It will give you all the information. You can print out the flyers. You can get the ISBN and the Library of Congress control number. So as soon as it drops, October 22nd, you can buy it online. Anywhere books are sold or in a bookstore, you can order it. And you could also go and request it at your library that day. Okay, thank you so much for talking with me, and I really hope this helps to help people to allow the children to come to Jesus, because that's what the goal is here. Thank you.